Hi, welcome. My name is Dale McCluskey, and on this video I want to challenge one of the many narratives that are out there in the dog training world regarding the use of certain devices. And again, when trainers talk about certain devices, understand it's all aligned with or connected to this idea, very popular idea of what training is, which is extremely problematic. Again, I talk about that on my videos versus a interaction-based approach, which again changes perceptions of dogs in a very intentional and predictable way. Now, one of the things here about devices, okay, you'll hear this narrative out there about using a muzzle, and you'll hear certain balanced dog trainers advocate not using a muzzle, okay. And again, when you kind of think about that and apply some common sense, you kind of consider, okay, if you have a dog that is aggressive, that's holding a certain level of control, and you're feeling a certain way about that, and you're not using a muzzle, well, that opens up people to very bad outcomes. Understanding that once someone gets bitten, okay, it changes everything. Oftentimes, it just totally removes any hope from in terms of moving forward in a positive direction. Dogs end up being destroyed as soon as they end up biting somebody. Liability issues, authorities get involved, and it really ties people's hands when it comes to saving dogs. And so again, that's one of the big things to consider when you're opening things up that way. Say, well, don't use a muzzle. But again, something you have to consider is like, why would anyone even say that? Like, don't use a muzzle. And again, I've looked at those statements and kind of considered, the approach itself and how some of these trainers, balanced dog trainers, in terms of the confusion, okay, in terms of trying to gain insight, okay, that's one of the things to understand here. There's a lot of confusion out there in the dog training world, and so trainers will try to find a way to gain information, okay. They think somehow by connecting with dogs a certain way, kind of removing all tools down to a certain level, that's going to give them some sort of a advantage. And in reality is, okay, the confusion's coming from, okay, this very popular idea of what training is, okay, by way, again, in a very superficial way, based on appearances, based on motivating dogs to respond in a very superficial way. That's your core issue. Understand, that's the problem. That's what's happening. But again, you'll see trainers do certain things, and even talking about, when they do get bitten, okay, as though that's some sort of a badge of honor. Okay, even being, it's ridiculous, but even trainers saying about being sent to the hospital, spending time in the hospital is somehow that's some sort of a good thing. It elevates them somehow. I see completely opposite, okay? In 30 years of training, I've only been bitten one time, and it wasn't even a dog that I was handling. Now, that's not to say that accidents, things don't happen, because they certainly do. So that's not even me saying, hey, I'm better that way. But it's all to say that when you're aligned with a proper process, okay, interaction-based approach, it gives you insight. It gives you real insight. It reduces the risk. But at the same time, okay, changing perceptions of dogs the right way versus bribery. So on the other side of things, people could brag, say, well, they never got bitten. But then you have to look at how they're actually jumping into a relationship problem, what they're actually, in terms of how they're, building the picture, how they're motivating dogs. So, when you're bribing dogs, okay, yeah, you can escape, getting bitten as well, but it doesn't mean that change is actually happening, okay? You're actually leaving people probably in worse shape, leaving people into being deceived, thinking that things are getting better, and they're really not. So, but again, all to say that when we talk about a muzzle, okay, and keeping things safe, okay, that's understand. Understand that when I talk about tools here, understand that now it changes everything, because now being aligned with an interaction-based approach, now you're focused on change, on real change, versus, okay, being led into believing things that aren't true. So therefore, when you use certain tools like a muzzle, they're temporary, okay, they're temporary, and the goal is to keep it safe, because you don't want bad outcomes. Once a dog's already hit a tipping point, okay, that's not good, okay, and you want to keep it safe. So when you're interacting with dogs, of course, it's going to be, a level of challenge. There's going to be a little level of pushback. And so, again, you don't want that thought in your mind, that fear, and that dog to feel that because again, it can escalate things. So a muzzle is important because again, a muzzle is just a tool. And here's the thing, when using a muzzle represents influence, okay? It's a reasonable demand that you're putting on the dog to accept influence that way. So even that itself gives you feedback, because a muzzle, the dog's trying to get his paw up to push that muzzle off, you need to get the dog to accept that, to be agreeable to that. And so that's helpful. And so again, moving along with training within the process itself, you know, having the muzzle on the dog is very helpful, because understand that you're in a whole different level, because now you're actually changing the perception. So that muzzle eventually will come off, okay? Just like all tools, the crate can go away. Certain tools, everything starts to diminish. So again, that's why I put out there that when you hear these type of narratives out there, it's very troubling for me, because you know, I know that can put people in a very bad position to actually remove hope from the equation. When trainers are promoting certain narratives like that, understand it's coming from a place of confusion, because again, they're looking for a way to kind of tap into some information. But the information, understand, real information, real insight comes by way of interacting with dogs the right way. Thanks for watching.